So this is another episode of My Friends in Cannabis. Today we got a good one. I had to pull up on my man Gary from Terp Bae. If you're not familiar, Terp Bae is a pre-roll, also a flower brand on the market in Massachusetts, killing it. You know, every time I see him, I'm happy he has a pre-roll for me in his pocket. Pause. But excited. And that's actually a nod to Bouquet because he said every time people see anything, he got flowers in his pocket, or papers in his pocket. So you know how that goes.
Sorry.
Anyways, without further ado, is my man Gary from Terp Bae. What's poppin', bro?
Peace, man. Cooling, chilling, man. Having a day, a wholesale day coming to an end. Chilling on the porch.
Wholesale day coming to an end. How much of the wholesaling are you personally doing yourself?
All of it.
All of it.
Yeah.
Going out, making the relationships, making sure your brand is spoken about in the tone and manner you want it.
Yeah. And a lot of relationships, honestly, I already had. I was a bud tender early on in the space, so a lot of those relationships were cultivated with people who I was on the front line with, bud tending, patient advocating with before bud tending was a thing. We were working DPH badges before the Cannabis Control Commission. So
Okay.
as everybody's careers start to grow in the industry, and so did mine, we find these great intersections where a lot of the buyers, not all of them, but a lot of the buyers I have great relationships with because we built this industry, at least in this market, together.
Yo, I love it, man. People need to know that you're a staple in the Massachusetts cannabis industry. And before we get into that, but tell me about your history in the industry here, both legacy and legal.
Legacy is real simple. I got into smoking weed really young, which I don't advocate for. And then I realized I had enough friends to potentially sell some weed too. So I started selling a little weed to friends and some family members to smoke and be able to do my thing.
I love it, man. Love it. And so that's brought you here to Terp Bae. Tell me about Terp Bae, man.
Terp Bae is our first black-owned social equity flower brand from Boston. We grew this brand out of Roxbury, right here in the space, and really proud to have something on the market and be able to provide something to the same people who have been coming to buy weed off me most of my life, and then some, to be able to build a brand that speaks to the customer. Is super dope. The industry's been you can't sit with us when it comes to the customer, and I wanted to make sure that we developed a brand that was more customer-centric and felt like a love letter from the industry to the customer, something that they could gravitate to, something that they could watch grow, something that they can build with, as opposed to being smacked with a finished product that they can either overjudge, something that overpromises and underdelivers. This is something that you can watch develop in real time.
Wow. I love that, man. That's pretty much what we're doing right here with this content, right? It's allowing people to follow along on my journey and meet some of my friends in cannabis along the way. Hopefully they follow you. Your information is right here below. Hopefully they follow you and they follow your journey as well. That's what it's about, man. It's patience over profit.
Facts. People over profits in general. Like we're moving into more recreational situation than anything. So like definitely people over profit. I think profit is definitely important though because you can't really do much for people without it. So I think
absolutely right. But I think that goes back to what you're saying, where we want to make sure we're not over promising and under delivering.
Yep.
Right. And to also your point, right? I think everybody is a medical consumer. They just
don't know
it, right? They over here trying to hide it, Now we all medicated for something.
Facts.
So let's talk more about Tiny Trap concerts, man. That's how I was first introduced to you, to the brand, man. Come on, more about that.
Tiny Trap concerts was developed out of just kind of watching the market do its thing. There's like 368 retailers in the space right now, probably more at this point. A lot of dispensaries had in and out traffic, but there wasn't again, you can't sit with this type of culture. Like you didn't feel welcome to come sit at the dispensary and kick it, or just hang out for a while without having a reason to be there. So Tiny Trap concerts was a way to kind of help dispensaries bring some foot traffic in a way that was organic. Also a way for us to take some of this cannabis industry money and put it towards local artists. build a platform that allows for us to work with the industry and artists alike, to provide opportunity for artists. Never in any artist's lifetime have over 200 venues opened in a short amount of time in an artist's career in their state. So we're able to offer new venues to artists who have been performing in the same spaces over and over again, the same spaces that have been run through by their peers over and over again. We're able to offer them a ton of new spaces to perform in, something that isn't performative for those companies that are involved with us, but something that also is exploitive of that Black and brown talent that we tend to bring on.
Something that isn't exploitive. It means it felt authentic and it was real, and you were just doing real good things from the heart.
I was never a promoter. I've never done shows or anything like that. So this was really just an opportunity for me to see what I could do with this access to the industry and the access to artistry in my state.
How many shows did you do for the Tiny Trap concert? And when's the next one, man?
We put a little bit of a pause on things just because we wanted to be able to move from a place that was ours and not dependent on sponsorship, dependent on pitching things in a way, like be able to make sure that if we want to do an event, we have the means and the capabilities to do that. And if people want to jump on and want to come on to support, they can do so. But we wanted to make sure we weren't operating from a space where we're reliant on sponsors to get things moving. So we put a little bit of a pause on things, stack up, build Terp Bae out as a sister brand, and do something that generates a little bit of a different type of income so that we're allowed to do some of the things we want to do overall with the parent company.
I love that, man. I love that. So how many of these Tiny Trap concerts were you able to put on over time?
Yeah, it's been 20 shows so far.
Somebody who says they're not a promoter, that's a lot, man.
Yeah, I mean, and a lot of them, like, we did a good, I'd say 10 to 12 of those were straight up our productions. A lot of the other half were collaborations with people who had things going on. Shout out to Open Streets, shout out to Mello for their anniversary. Shout out to so many other folks who pulled us in for some of the things that they have going on and who continue to pull us on. There are a bunch of artists, DJs who we still see in cannabis events, DJing, performing. A lot of those really introduced to Trap concerts, so I'm happy to have been able to create some pipeline for, like I said, artists in the industry, and I hope that everybody's in a way above board and keeps everybody taken care of.
Oh, word, you mentioned a great name. Shout out to Mello. They kept both our products on the shelf year round this last year.
Oh yeah.
I love that. Whenever we get a dispensary who buys in and supports Black brands and
Facts.
they do it authentically, right? They don't just have us out here parading around and fucking and jiving.
Shout out to my guy Black, man. The first time I've ever spoken on anything for any of this stuff was on Let's Talk Weed. I really shied away from the camera for a lot of it because I felt like there was a lot of talking and not enough doing, and like people tend to talk a lot about what their plans are, a lot about what's coming, a lot about what they have licenses for or may not, but you don't really see all of those things come to fruition. And so I really want to focus on doing things and speaking later. So Black pulled me out of that a little bit. I did my first panel with Let's Talk Weed for Open Street, so shout out to Black for that. And shout out to Kayla over there too. She just put in a nice order today. So definitely shout out to Mello.
Kayla, I'm calling you. But yeah, man, shout out to G Black, man, my guy, holding it down. So let's talk about this business model, right? 'Cause I think you and I have the same exact business model, well, very similar business model, right? We both run, and these are all terms that I've come up with, right? Mm-hmm. But we both run asset light, meaning we haven't sank hundreds of thousands of dollars into the licensure process, right? We've pretty much just found folks to help us bring our vision and our products to life. Essentially, at the end of the day, what we end up doing is trying to run a marketing agency, mm-hmm. right? With great brands attached, right? At the end of the day, it's all about marketing. Yep. That's all it's about.
Yep.
And you have some of the best marketing in the game, hands down.
I appreciate that.
Talk to me, what kind of advice would you give somebody who's looking to enter the cannabis market and they want to do it similar to us? What type of advice would you give them?
I would say Honestly, the reason I started a cannabis brand was because it's where I had the most access. If you have access in fashion, you have access in food, you have access anywhere else, I would say start there because that's where you're gonna get the most support, the most traction, and that's where you have the most know-how. As you develop your brand, as it builds stronger and stronger, you may find that that brand is stronger than a lot of the companies that you may potentially be able to partner with. And you add value to what they have as opposed to being someone who needs a favor. And that puts you in better position than to be someone who is just a glorified wholesaler.
Boy, you can really negotiate from the front when you have a brand that, and they're looking like, yo, we need to partner with
Right.
Terp Bae and things of that nature. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's important to build your brand outside of cannabis. Like I'm using cannabis to break out of, I'm using this to break out of cannabis, where a lot of people, famous people even, are using their platforms to break into cannabis. We're using Terp Bae to break out of cannabis. So we started with pre-rolls and flower. Terp Bae merchandise has been doing very well. We've worked to establish ourselves as a brand that also has cannabis. So factioning the brand off in certain ways, where Terp Bae Athletics has a focus on working with athletes from a semi-pro and even a collegiate level, in hopes that in time we can work with pro athletes on just developing more awareness between cannabis and athleticism, and even sometimes not even cannabis and athleticism, just general support of athleticism. Showing up to basketball tournaments and handing out water, giving some general awareness. Some of the things that we are working on from the hemp perspective, just in regards to clothing and some of the other things that we're going to be providing later on down the pipeline, I'm excited for. But being able to move this brand in a way, collaborating with restaurants to launch the Terp Bae Taco that will be coming at the end of this month, I'm really excited for. There's a lot of potential to move outside of the industry when you're not a licensed entity. Licensed entities kind of fall in a bubble where they don't really know how to reach out to non-cannabis companies, and non-cannabis companies don't really know how to reach out to them. There isn't much of an olive branch. So branding yourself as a brand first allows for you to be a connector and a bridge to all the things that you want to access and what you got going on.
No, I love that, bro. I love that because I love that you taking the brand and you not just keeping it where it's at. You saying, how can I evolve? What can I do to differentiate myself? And how can I make money other ways? Because people really come into this industry thinking, yo, I'm about to hit my first mill in the first 90 days. And in reality, it's definitely not
Yeah,
like that.
not at all.
Mm.
It's a grind. Just like everything else, you got to build your clientele, you got to build your connects, you got to make sure you got the right connect. You might go through a few connects. You got your loyals, you got people who will try anything, so they'll run around and then they'll come back. You got all types of stuff going on. Being in this market for sure, I've seen other brands come in and do things in a way, and that's kind of what set me off on this path. I got into the social equity program in cohort 1 to do social consumption like a lot of other people, and we realized that was a pipe dream in regards to it from a license perspective. I made a shift, and this was kind of the focus. It definitely allows for you to do a lot more than what you could have done with the least amount of risk. No one's house is up at risk for foreclosure. We didn't have to sell anybody's kids' teeth or anything like that. Everything's smooth. And we have to join no cults or nothing like that. Everything's good.
Stacking your bread, bro.
Yeah,
one brick at a time, man.
Yeah, and getting to move how we want to move, honestly. There are so many folks that are just stuck to something, and this brand is developing and growing just like any other bud or any other flower. So like it has its phases, it has its moments, and I'm really happy for the fact that people get to watch that happen, as opposed to something that just gets dropped on them. There's a lot of stuff that gets dropped on people, and because they spent a few $1 million on launching in Massachusetts, they feel like it's going to work, or because they spent a few $1 million launching anywhere, they feel like it's going to work, and that doesn't always reach the customer. You get a lot of a lot of buyers and a lot of happy bartenders that get to smoke for free, like you should when you're selling weed. But at the end of the day, if you're not really reaching the customer, then all that was smoke and mirrors.
Absolutely. Anyways, the clock is getting active, so I'm gonna let you go.
My God.
Appreciate you having me, man.
No doubt.